Thank you for joining us. You are a part of a powerful group who recognizes that Black women's health should be at the forefront of the national conversation. We are mothers, daughters, activists, entrepreneurs, entertainers, corporate warriors, and more, who help boost the economy and often drive the national conversation. For almost 40 years, the Black Women's Health Imperative has strived to amplify our voices, help enact policy that protects us, research our issues, create programs that enhance our lives, and produce events like this one to ensure we keep the conversation going about the issues that matter to us most. So, let's get started with our program.
Hey everybody, it's Erin, your Dish Diva, coming to you from the Black Women's Health Imperative for the second part of our To Meet or Not to Meet event. So, joined with me today virtually is Tiffany Phillips from Montgomery, Alabama, and with the Wellness Coalition. Hey, Tiffany.
Hi, Erin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. So happy to be here with you as usual.
Yes, I always love having you here. Makes this cooking demonstration so much more enjoyable. Well, I'm glad you're here today because I know we've discussed this, you and I together, about having more meat and changing the focus of meat not being the star of the plate, and actually making the vegetables a star, and maybe have this meat as a side dish. So, with what we're doing today, I was kind of racking my brain on what I wanted to prepare for you guys to watch, and there's so many vegan or plant-based recipes, and some of them can be really, really complicated, especially when you're trying to replicate meat. So, what I've done today was I found recipes that I've enjoyed making that are very tasty, that are simple to make, and are budget friendly. I want to make sure these are accessible to everybody.
And
But the
that's
other,
important.
it is, isn't
Right.
it? I
Yeah,
mean, because the other part of it too is that, you never want to be in a situation where you have to cook several different meals in the household
absolutely.
because you decided
Hmm.
to go plant based, or, have a little bit more of that plant material and a lot less meat. Um, so we would just want to make sure that with these recipes, you can actually just add in some meat as needed, right?
That's good. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Sound good?
Hmm.
All right.
I'm excited.
Okay. All right.
Because,
Me too.
Erin, I am a meat eater, like the
You're a
carnivore of
carnivore.
the carnivores. So I'm like, and I
Yep.
have been that way forever. And
Hmm.
so this is helpful. I'm sure I'm not out here by myself. Right. So I'm
Right.
sure other people are the same way. It's like, as you said in the beginning, thinking of meat as the side. I'm like,
Mhm.
this is blasphemous, Erin. So I'm trying.
I know,
I'm
right?
trying to get on board with this, so
Right.
I'm excited. I'm
Okay, good.
open.
Okay. As long as you're open to it, as long as you're open, that's all I ask. Okay.
Okay.
So we are going to explore some of these recipes. I hope you guys enjoy them. I really enjoy them. The first thing I made is a drink, of course. Tiffany, I like to have a drink. And I'm not saying alcoholic drink, but I love to have a drink. So what I have here is called a Garden Mary. Have you ever heard of that before, Tiffany?
I have not.
No? So you've heard of Bloody Mary, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So this is just kind of a play on that, but actually just using fresh vegetables. So
Oh.
you can see it's not as brightly colored red as you might see a Bloody Mary, but that's because there's probably some food coloring in there. They may, have used cooked um, tomatoes as opposed to raw. But this one
Mm,
has full of, so you think about it as a smoothie or even like a gazpacho, which is like a cold soup. But it's got tomatoes, cucumbers. I threw in some parsley. There's a carrot in there, some radishes, a little bit of jalapeno to give it some spice, some
mhm.
Dijon mustard. I used coconut aminos, which is basically like soy sauce, but they actually use the nectar of a coconut tree and they
Okay.
ferment it. And so you kind of get the same kind of saltiness you would from a soy sauce. But this one has a slight sweetness to it, and it's a lot lower in sodium, which is a
Oh,
good thing.
okay.
Yeah.
And so, Erin, with this drink, I would imagine that drinking something like this would be filling too. Like, that could be a snack in so many ways.
It is
Yeah.
filling, and it's a little thicker. I mean,
Mhm.
because it's, I just blended it up in my blender, and so but it's got so much flavor in it.
I
I mean, you
bet.
got that spice from the jalapenos. There's also like some celery seed in there. Um, and I think I put a little splash of Worcestershire sauce in there as well, just to
Okay.
give it another little kick. But lemon juice, so it's all these really good components that are like helping to
Mm.
cleanse you, helping to give you some nutrients, give you some energy. So when you're thinking about like smoothies, a lot of times people put a lot of fruit in there, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So and then you end up having way too much sugar. So this
Mhm.
way you can enjoy this. It's very refreshing. But I mean, you're going to see me sipping on this a lot during this demo.
Okay. I imagine it probably helps with digestion too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, because you're still getting the fiber, even though it's blended up, you're still getting that fiber
That
in there. So
fiber.
that's the
Yeah.
awesome part.
Okay.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's get started with the
Okay.
other recipe. Because I want to go ahead and get the burner on here because I'm going to make a seafood chowder. So I found this recipe years
Mm.
ago in a magazine, and I've made it and kind of tweaked it over the years, and I love it. And I know that soup right now with the heat wave we're having seems a little bit like but I know that fall is right around the corner.
Yes, it
Right, we're at the
is.
end of we're at
Mhm.
the end of August right now, so fall is
Mhm.
coming. So this just kind of keep this on the sideline until you're ready to have those soups, those warming soups. But what I like about it is it's got a lot of good vegetables in there. And then you're creating a cream with the cashews.
Mhm.
All right, so let us get started with that. All right, so what I've got here that goes in there, we're going to put some potatoes in there. We're going to have some carrots, some red pepper, and of course some onion and garlic. And then my favorite is the mushrooms. So the
Ooh.
mushrooms are, I did like a variety of mushrooms.
Mhm.
So, typically the mushrooms we get at the grocery store, like the button or the ebony
Yeah.
mushrooms, those don't always have as much nutrients in them. The ones I got are in here are trumpeter, shiitake,
Mm.
and I can't think of lion's mane, maybe that's in here. And so, they tend to be seasonal at the grocery store. So you can try to see if you can find a variety pack when you're buying the mushrooms. And those give you a little bit more of the vitamin D. They also provide some immunity support. And, you don't really get a whole lot of vitamin D in food unless it's like
Uh,
added to it.
that's true.
But with mushrooms, it's one of the few plants where you can actually get the vitamin D because most of it you get from the sun,
Right.
which you get a
Mm.
lot of down in Montgomery. I mean,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness. Is there a thing of having too much vitamin D?
Yes,
It's
ma'am.
like I'm
I
over it.
know. Are you guys having the heat wave down there as well?
Yes, every day it's an excessive heat warning.
Oh, I know. That
And
just
I'm sure it's like cool and pleasant there in the mornings.
it's okay. We had some
Okay.
rain, so it kind of cooled off a little bit. That's the only thing though. It's like 90 now. All right. So I'm going to add in my onions here.
And is
That's
that
good.
just like a yellow onion or a sweet
Yeah,
onion?
just a regular yellow onion. And I'm going to actually put in my carrots as well. And we're going to let those saute a little bit. So we wanted
Yeah.
to get just a little bit tender in there. So
Mhm.
while that's kind of doing its thing, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about breakfast.
Ooh.
So, one of my favorite breakfasts is eggs and bacon.
Yes, Erin, that is my favorite meal of the day. So much so that at my wedding we served breakfast.
Are you serious? What did you
We
guys have?
did. We had a brunch instead of I was like,
I
"I
love
don't
it.
want the dry chicken breast and the green beans everybody has. Like, give me the bacon, give me the eggs, and I'm good."
I love it. I
But
love it.
it's yeah, so I'm excited about this meal.
Yeah. So what I did was this is basically a tofu scramble. And, you know, this I'm not a huge fan of tofu. Just because the texture is a little weird for me.
Mhm.
But It really works in the scramble of this nature because it has the same texture and consistency as eggs. So I
Ah.
basically just sauteed some onions and mushroom and garlic and red pepper, and
Mhm.
it give and then crumbled the tofu into the
Oh.
pan
Uh-huh.
and saute that up. And you add in some turmeric to give it that yellow color, so it looks like you're eating eggs.
It
And
does.
it's not bad. And like when you're adding in all of the ingredients with the spices and things of that nature, it actually helps to kind of elevate that flavor of it too. So I know when we talked during the to meat or not to meat discussion,
Yes.
you know, some people don't want to give up those flavors that you get from the meat, but you can also get those flavors from different spices. So with that, garlic is always a good one to add to anything because it does help with digestion. And the turmeric is really good. It's a really
Mhm.
good anti-inflammatory, and so I like to put it in everything. But it gives this nice color to the eggs. I'm saying,
It really does. So,
hmm
Aaron, I would imagine, like anything else, that all tofu is not created equal. Like, is there something I need to be looking for when I buy tofu?
so with tofu, I mean, tofu is a soy product. And so you are going to get a good amount of protein there. There's
Mhm.
also things like tempeh, which is more of a fermented soy.
Uh-huh.
And I would say those are probably good options there as far as finding soy or finding tofu. But with the tofu, sometimes they make it and they have it already like smoked or flavor enhanced on there and
Mm,
that sort of thing. So you just want to read the ingredients, make sure you're not getting too much
gotcha.
sodium because it doesn't have a taste at all. So, they're trying to infuse it with a lot of flavor.
Mm.
It's just
So
like
that
every
makes
other.
it like a good base, though. You can take your
Mhm.
spices and kind of recreate whatever you want it to be with just your
Yeah. I mean, it's
spices.
really nice the tofu that it can take on some of those other flavors.
Mm.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
it's like a
My potatoes in here. Oh, and on the plate, I also have some portobello bacon.
tell me more.
So if you want to create some bacon, and it's basically just adding some flavor enhancers to it, a little bit of maple syrup. You can do something like the coconut aminos to give it kind of that saltiness. Smoked paprika works well to give it that smoky flavor. Or if you can find like a smoked sea salt or smoked garlic or something like that, you can actually add a little smokiness to it.
Ah,
And then you just marinate the slices. You slice up the portobello mushroom, you marinate those slices, and then just put it on a skillet and kind of crisp it a little bit, about 5 minutes on each side.
now
Um,
is it crispy?
it's not quite as crispy now. I made it just a little bit ago, and
Uh-huh.
it softened up a little bit. You can see there, it's a little bit softer. When I pulled it off of the skillet, though, the edges were really crispy.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
definitely want something that you're gonna, eat right away.
Right.
But it's got a lot of flavor in there.
I
Really good.
bet. Now, Aaron, how's your husband? Like, would this be a meal that he would eat?
He might he might try it a little bit. Like
Mhm.
he'll be open, but if he didn't like it, he's not going back. So it's
Right.
just one of those things where I mean, if I do a lot more of the cooking than he does. So for me, it's like, okay, if I make it, let's see if he'll eat it. And then we've come across some winners, like the seafood chowder he really likes.
Oh, that's good.
I have made it a little too fishy before, but I will get into that in just a second because there are some components that go into this that makes it feel like you're actually eating seafood.
Gotcha.
I'm gonna put my peppers in here.
And I asked that, because with CYL squared and sometimes the women, it's usually women in the classes usually, at least my classes, and they're trying to change, right? And it can be difficult to get your partner on board with you to eat what you're eating, and so that can be really challenging. So,
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's probably a challenge for a lot of people. But like just leaving the communication open, explaining to them what your why is,
Mhm.
telling them, so they have a better understanding of why you're doing it, and it's not maybe just another um, fad diet that you're trying to try to lose weight.
Yeah, and it
But
was so good watching. So if you have not watched To Meet or Not to Meet, that conversation, it was phenomenal. And I love what the registered dietitian said. Her name escapes me, but she was saying how in the beginning she would make something different for she and her husband, and he would say, now he's saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll just eat it the regular way."
hmm
And that's how Chris is. And I told him, I was like, "You're surprising me because I wasn't expecting this. So really, I didn't buy enough for you to eat it this way. I was counting on you to keep eating what you were eating. Now my
right,
meal plan is running out too quick." So
right.
you have to let us know these things before we go to the grocery store.
I
But
think that's
yeah,
awesome, though. I mean, the fact that and it was Sharon, and and she even said she kept dropping some gems on that
she was.
discussion. But she even said, once she stopped talking,
Yep.
that's when people started
Yep.
listening. And those
Mhm.
actions, your actions are going to speak a little bit louder than any words that you may say, concerns you may have. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I do the primary. I'm the primary cooker in the house, so for me,
Mhm.
it was just kind of like, well, this is what we're eating.
Right?
And if you don't like it, I guess you got to find something else in there that you can make or go out and get something.
Right.
But and it really did. My husband really did start. You know, like, oh, okay, this is actually really good.
Right.
So, and I think with your husband too, it sounds like he
Yeah.
wasn't. I think the idea is what scares people, right?
Right.
It's the idea of it.
Right.
And once you sort of start doing it, it's kind of like, oh, that's not so bad. Oh, that has some really good flavor. It tastes really good.
Right.
So,
Yeah. It's more mental, like, "Oh, I don't wanna change. This is what I've always done." That sounds kinda weird to me,
exactly,
but if you're open
exactly.
to it, yeah, it tastes good. I mean, that's what
hmm
you're really going for when you're eating anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it really is about changing that mindset, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, while this is, we're gonna let that simmer for a minute so the vegetables get a little bit tender. But we're almost done. I mean, like I said, it's a really quick uh, recipe. So we've got all the components in there. What I poured into here, it looked like it was just water, but what I made was a broth. So what I used to make the broth is called kombu, Kombu. So you can, and it's a seaweed. So you basically put a couple of strips into some water and boil it. Let it sit for a little bit, and then you get this kind of seaweedy, fishy flavor. So that's what's going to give you the flavor of the seaweed. All right, so now that we've got this simmering here, we want to make sure everything is tender. The potatoes, the carrot, we'll let those go just a little bit more. All right, and then after that, we're going to add in our mushrooms and our cashew. Okay, guys, so while that is still simmering in the pot there, we're going to go ahead and start making these crab cakes that are actually made with artichoke. Now, artichokes in the can, you'll want to rinse them off. If you can find some that aren't salted, they're not in oil, they're just in water, that's going to be your best bet. But you're basically just chopping them up, or you can throw them into a food processor and get them chopped up. And,
Now, Erin, I just cannot get with artichokes. I have tried them all the time. And maybe because I probably need to cook them in something, like I could
mm,
probably eat them in like this crab cake, but
yes,
just like as a topping on a salad,
yeah,
it's like, I don't know. It's like some part of it seems inedible. Like I doesn't, it's like you know
like
what
the
I'm talking
stem.
about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the core of it. And that's what's nice about the ones in the can though, is that they are a lot softer.
Okay.
I had, I was well into adulthood when the first time I ate an artichoke that wasn't in a can.
Mm.
And it's an interesting process because you pull off the leaves and then you have to like scrape the meat out of the leaf. And it's actually pretty good that way. If you can ever
Mm.
find some that are just like the whole artichoke is cooked. But yes, put it in something because they with the canned ones they tend to be a little bit mushier. And what's nice about using them in this crab cake is that it actually gives you the sense of it being fish. Like it almost has that kind of fillet
Mm,
feel to it.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm. We're
And
adding
what did you
in
just put in?
some some corn,
Okay,
and
cool.
I love fire roasted corn. So if you can find that, it's so yummy. And then some green onions. We're gonna put in some
Mm.
red bell pepper, and then we're gonna put in some. I just crumbled up some crackers, and these are like
Wow.
stone ground wheat crackers that have like flaxseed in them and stuff. So definitely trying to get something that's going to be really nutrient dense. Because typically with a crab cake, you're putting in some sort of flour of sort.
And that's the act as like a binder to hold it
Yeah,
all together? Okay.
exactly. And then for our seasoning, we have a little bit of dried parsley, some ground garlic, Old Bay. And so the Old Bay is going to provide some
Mm.
salt, but Old Bay is really good with seafood and just a little pepper.
And I always like how, your dishes are always so colorful, right?
Yes,
'Cause you have that yellow, the red, the green, like, it always looks so pretty.
yes, that is the key is to make it as pretty as possible.
Right.
That's what they say is like eat the rainbow, but all of those colors are going to give you different nutrients. So
Right.
that's part of the key there. Oh, you know what? I don't have my mayonnaise. So we're going to add a little bit of just a touch of mayonnaise into this, and it'll help just hold it together a bit. And I
Mhm.
also made like a nice little tartar sauce to go with it.
Ooh.
And as we did before, I made something with a little bit of Greek yogurt and then added just a touch
Ah.
of mayonnaise to it. But I also just added in a little bit of hot sauce,
Mhm.
to kick it up a notch, a little bit of lemon juice, and a little bit of fresh garlic in there. Right. So yeah, you can see how colorful this is. You've got those different colors
Mhm.
in there. A typical crab cake, you're not going to see all of these vegetables in there.
Right.
But this just adds another like layer of flavor for you.
Now will you form them into patties?
Yes. And then I
Mm.
typically like to bake them. I know a lot of people, a lot of times crab cakes can be sort of pan seared.
Right.
I find that when you're working with vegetables and you're trying to do the same things you would with meat, it usually doesn't work out as well. So like when you're making veggie burgers, they don't tend to hold together as well, like in the skillet. So I
Mm.
always just like to bake them, and then that way I don't really have to fuss with them too much.
Right.
I don't have to worry about them getting, you're adding more calories with the oil, and if you bake them, it's going to be a little less of that.
Right. Now would you flip them in the oven?
Yeah, you can definitely flip them in the
Okay.
oven.
Okay.
So you just want just enough. I mean, I probably put in maybe just about a tablespoon of the mayonnaise, and I found like a light mayonnaise. Now, keep in mind that mayonnaise typically has eggs in it. So if you are trying to give up the eggs, you want to find like a vegan version of the mayonnaise or an egg-free version.
So, Erin, what tips would you give for someone who is just starting out? Like they see it, oh, that's a good concept to go meatless. What advice would you give them for starting?
Start off slow. Just
Mm,
take tiny
mhm.
steps because it can be very overwhelming trying to do it all at once. And maybe incorporate like a meatless Monday, or not even go that far, a meatless breakfast, a meatless lunch, a meatless dinner, and just play around with like some recipes.
Mm,
And you
mhm.
can find some that you really enjoy, and maybe the rest of your family enjoys as well. People in your household may enjoy as well. Um, but I think starting off small, and with a lot of these recipes I'm doing today, like you can make them, try them, see if it works for you, and then what you can do is like cut the recipe in half so you're not making as much. So
Gotcha.
it's just enough
Mhm.
to try. Oops. Might need just a little bit more in there. You can see they're sort of falling apart, but they have kind of the consistency of what a crab cake would look like
Right.
with a
Yeah.
little bit more vegetables.
And like you were saying, that's That's definitely important because, we sometimes we have that mindset of all or nothing. So it's like I wake up
Mhm.
tomorrow and I say, I'm gonna be vegan. I'm gonna start not eating any meat without any plan, any way to ease your
Yeah,
way into it. You are about like you are setting yourself up for
to
failure.
fail. Yeah. And I mean, that's the key though, is that you have to have a plan. So yeah,
Right.
that may be what you want to do. So I think a large part of it is just education. And then, we talked about, making sure you're getting the different meat sources, I mean, the protein sources, since you're not eating any meat. And then making sure that you're also, supplementing with B12. Like, not, if you don't know that, then that could cause some issues with you in your health. Even though you're thinking you're going on a healthy route, you may go to a very unhealthy route if you're
Right.
not careful. And then,
Right.
exploring recipes. I think that's the biggest thing. I tell people who even are not meatless to, I think the spoon is just not working. People who aren't typically meatless, I just tell them to try, like, go into like, get a vegan cookbook and try a couple
Mm,
recipes out of there. Because even if you're not completely meatless, some of those recipes are really good, and they really do have some unique ways of using food.
right.
You can make an Alfredo sauce with cauliflower.
Mm.
Yeah, you just blend it up, and then, you add in some components to flavor it, of course. So you've got some garlic in there. You can add some herbs if you wanted to. The nutritional yeast is also a very good thing to add, because the nutritional yeast not only provides B12, something that you're missing if you're not eating meat, but it also allows you to get this like cheesy kind of salty flavor.
Right. Mhm.
Have you used nutritional yeast before?
I have.
Yeah.
Mhm. I'll sprinkle it on my salads and just yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good cheese. It gives you that flavor.
Uh-huh. Without eating the cheese. And so many of us are lactose intolerant anyways. So it just allows just another option. And one thing we talked about during the discussion last weekend was really like, it's not about just giving up on everything, on the meat and all of that stuff. It's exploring some new possibilities.
Right. Right. And it's, not thinking about what you're giving up, but what you're adding, that mindset shift. It's like
Yeah.
because most people probably in your shopping cart every week, you probably got some chicken or some beef, but you probably don't have artichokes in there. So maybe,
Right. Right.
thinking about what I'm adding, it's like, oh, I'm going to
Hmm.
get some different nutrients, get to explore some different foods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and then, like, even if you were making crab cakes and you use real crab in here, now you're like, oh, well, I can put in some roasted corn. I can put in some bell peppers. I
Yes,
can put,
that's
and
true.
you're just
Mhm.
kind of increasing the health of those crab cakes. All right, we're gonna stick those in there. So with a lot of things, like when you're making it meatless, and things don't always hold together quite as nicely. So these may not be as pretty as, say, the regular crab cakes, but they're going to be delicious. So that's the most important thing too.
Right. I mean, after you chew it anyway, I mean, it all has the same fate.
Yeah.
It you won't recognize it
That's true.
once you chew.
That is
Yeah.
so true. So with this soup, we're gonna come back to the soup now.
Okay.
So what I'm doing, this is another seaweed, uh, wakame flakes, and I just blended them like, or in like a spice grinder. I mean, in a coffee grinder, and made it into a powder. So I'm just gonna put
Oh,
a little bit of that in there, probably about like a half a teaspoon, maybe even a quarter. Because what you want to do is you can increase the amount if you wanted to have that a little bit more fishiness to it. But that just helps increase it there. Then we're gonna put in our mushrooms. So I roasted these first, drizzled them with some oil, sprinkled them with a little bit of salt and pepper, and then roasted them in the oven. So they're already cooked. So we're just gonna warm them up in here.
oh. Now, Erin, what else could you do with that, seaweed? Like, do you have anything else to do with it? Because I had got on this sushi kick one time. It's like, "Oh, I'm gonna make sushi," and then that's all like, "Oh, that's all I know to do with it."
Yeah, well, there's different type.
Mhm.
So, like with the kombu, it's very tough. So it really
Mm.
only works as like making a broth or
Oh,
something, or you putting in there
gotcha.
to get that flavor in there.
Mhm.
So it just depends on what you're
That's
wanting.
good.
I know they sometimes sell like a seaweed salad, and it's like dehydrated, and then what you just kind of
Oh.
soak it in some water, and then it's like it's seaweed. It comes back to life, and
Oh,
you can eat it
okay.
that way. I there are see I'm surprised I don't have any in here. We my you know, with our kids, we know they can be picky eaters and all that stuff, but he loves seaweed snacks. So those
Really?
yeah, he will tear those up. I'm like, okay, but you won't eat broccoli, but you're gonna eat the seaweed snacks. But he loves them, and so I mean, they might have some flavor on them. They have a little bit of salt on them,
Salt. Mhm.
but he really enjoys them. So we always make sure we have those in the house. And the seaweed is really nutrient dense too. So it's got
Right.
so many different nutrients in there. And it's kind of like one of the superfoods, right? When we talk about
Mm.
kale and broccoli and all of that stuff, it's got so many different nutrients and like phytonutrients and minerals and trace minerals, like all of these things that we are missing, but they come from the.
Right.
And so they
Mm.
might have like the sodium in it, but sodium is something that we do need.
Mhm.
Um, so it's nice when you can just get it from the food as opposed to adding it to the food.
Right.
Hmm.
Yes. So what did you pour in? Is that the
So this is
cashew?
the cashew cream.
Mm.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah. I think I made it a little thinner than I wanted to, but you can thicken this up. But it's like just like a cashew milk. And
Mm.
then once you let this simmer a little bit, it'll thicken up a
Thicken
little
up.
bit.
Mhm.
But if you want it thicker, you can add, I think I had about 2 cups of water to 1 cup of soaked cashew. Like I measured a cup of cashews and then soaked it. Um, and then blended it all together once they had soaked for a while. And then it's like this nice creamy, milky.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm, so you could use that as like a coffee creamer
Oh, yeah.
maybe, or
Oh,
you
yeah.
know how like you're making curry and it calls for like a
Mhm.
can of coconut milk?
Yeah. Yeah.
Use that. Mm,
Absolutely. So, I mean, and then that's a good point too, because you could also use some coconut milk in here if you wanted to. The nice thing
mm,
about putting coconut milk in something savory is that you don't really get that coconut flavor.
that's true.
It
Mhm.
kind of goes away. Now, the other option, I know I talked about making the broth, but the other option is, if you're just dabbling in the plant base, you could always get a seafood stock and just use that as well. I mean, that would be an option there. And you'll get that fish flavor. But what's nice about the seaweed, like I said, is that they have so many nutrients in it that it's nice to kind of incorporate that.
God, mhm.
Hmm. And this is, I forgot to mention this because this went into the crab cake. So these are kelp granules. And again, another form of seaweed. So this is something that you can also, see if I can get the light shining on here, right? This is also something that you can use in place of salt, like regular table salt, because it'll have a little bit of saltiness to it, but you'll also get a nice a blend of nutrients as well.
I have never heard of that.
Hmm.
Where do you get that? You get that, like, could you get that at Walmart? At
You can
the
get it at the regular grocery store, yeah. And
Mm.
I would go to if they have like a international area or Asian food area, you can usually find it there. Like
Now
if
is
you
that
had seaweed for sushi, you could find it wherever they have that as well.
Gotcha, okay. Now is that something you would put on your eggs? Like
Yeah.
you said, it was like,
Hmm.
okay,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it on my eggs.
okay.
And like I said, it gives you that nice little saltiness.
Saltiness, okay.
Mhm. Okay. But we've got our crabby cakes in the oven. You'll see a
Ooh.
lot of the like plant-based names of the recipes either have quotes or they come up with some sort of name. So like the seafood chowder was SEE, seafood chowder, not
Ah.
SEA.
Ah.
So, okay, so that's simmering. We've got our crab cakes in the oven. We're going to get started on our cauliflower and lentil tacos. Okay. So let me just get some of this stuff cleaned up here. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, we're back. I got everything cleaned up, and so we can get started on our next recipe. Had to take a drink first. All right, so the next recipe is our cauliflower lentil taco meat. So you see, I did the quotes. All right, so this is another great recipe because taco night is a good theme, right? And
Right.
everybody pretty much can enjoy tacos. And what's cool about this recipe is that you could still make it with the lentils and the cauliflower and add in some ground meat to it.
Oh,
So if you have some people who are a little skeptical about just doing, or you're not so sure about going full on meatless with it, you can always add a little bit of ground meat. And like I said, with all of these recipes, you really can too. With this chowder, you could always add in like some scallops, maybe some shrimp. So just make it to your liking, but also know that you're getting a lot more nutrients now that you have like all of these vegetables in here.
And that's onion you're sauteing in there?
Yeah, so I would just put the onion in there. And what I did, so this is going to be a really good time saver. This is rice cauliflower. You can see it in there. And I got this frozen from the frozen section. So in order to rice a cauliflower, if you take a whole cauliflower, you either like have to keep chopping it up, or you have to like put a few florets into a food processor at a time until you have enough.
Right.
So to save some time and energy, I've gotten the frozen one. And what's nice about the frozen one is that it's already cooked slightly. So usually when they freeze the vegetables, they blanch them first and then freeze them. You can also find like rice cauliflower in the produce section, but it won't be cooked.
Right. Now, did you have to drain that once you thawed it? No. Oh, okay.
Well, you know what I did? I put it into, because I was trying to thaw it quickly. So I put it into a sieve and a colander.
Okay.
And I kind of ran some water
Water
over it,
over it.
kind of help thaw it out. So I don't know. There might have been some water in it that kind of came out of it. But yeah, you want it to be somewhat drier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's the nice thing about it already being cooked, is that now all I have to do is worry about cooking the onions and all of that stuff instead of worrying about cooking the cauliflower. And the other thing I did, I'm putting a little bit of garlic in there. And then the other part of it too is I got some canned lentils.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to soak. Do you, when you buy them dry, do you have to soak them first, or can you just
No.
cook
So
'em?
the nice thing
Okay.
about lentils is that you don't, like, with beans, you usually have to soak them.
Right.
With lentils, you don't have to worry about doing that.
Hmm. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah. So they are pretty quick to make.
And
But
what do they have protein in them?
yeah,
What's
they
the
actually are a really good source of protein.
Okay.
So when you're looking at getting, plant-based proteins, you're looking at lentils, beans, nuts and seeds have good sources of protein. And then some vegetables have a small amount as well.
Mm-hmm. So, Erin, are lentils a complete protein? You know how sometimes they tell you, oh, you need to eat rice and beans together to get
Yeah.
a complete protein, but are lentils a complete protein?
I don't think they're a complete protein, but
Okay.
again, if you pair them with some other things, you get there's the 9 amino acids. And so you're just looking to get all 9 of those. So if you pair it with other things like rice, you can get the complete protein.
Okay. Okay.
And it varies from like bean to bean too. So something like black eyed peas have a higher protein content and a lower carb content, whereas like kidney beans or lima beans or pinto beans have more carbs and protein.
Yes.
Mhm. So just something to think about, like if you're really trying to up the protein.
Right. Do you
Mhm.
know if does your body process it any different? Like, does it still recognize it as protein even if it's incomplete?
Yes, it's still going to recognize it as it. But so there's, all of those amino acids do different things in our body.
Right.
So there's some that are responsible for like detoxification. So if you need to be there, it helps your liver detox. It needs to be present in order for your
Mm,
liver to go through that process of detoxification. So like I said, it's important that you do get well-rounded. So again, that's why you eat a variety of food.
Right.
So try not to stick to those same things all the time. If you vary it up a little bit, then you're guaranteed to get those proteins.
Right. So you're looking at it almost like over not necessarily meal by meal, but like overall, am I getting, you know, the nutrients that I need?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a
I
good way
mean,
to look at it. I mean, because like you're eating these lentils, you're getting some protein.
right.
Um, you know what I mean? And so like if you add some some sort of, cashew cream or something like that, you're getting some more protein in there. So I mean, it does vary, and like I said, throughout the day, if you're getting different types of protein, because one thing that protein is important for is building and maintaining muscle mass. So
Right.
as we age, we kind of lose a little bit of that, and so that
Mhm.
protein is going to be important in helping to repair and sustain some of that muscle mass.
Right. And so, Erin, along those same lines, for those of us out there who are afraid, right, to eat less meat or to go vegan out of fear of muscle loss, what would you say to that?
I mean, I think that you're going to get protein. So protein is protein, right? So you're going to get
Right.
protein, and there are definitely going to be some different components with meat versus the plant protein like we talked about. But I think you're still going to get an adequate amount. I mean, there's so
Mhm.
many athletes out there who
Are
follow plant-based diets and
right.
still look amazing.
Right.
So it's
Mhm.
about, and again, it's about educating yourself so that you have an understanding of where it's coming from.
Right.
And the thing is like when it's plants, it's going to have way more nutrients. Um, so yeah,
Right, and I liked what, Sandra, I think that's the RD's name on them, to meat or not to meat, how she said
Sharon.
any way of healthy eating, is gonna be highly plant-based. Like, if you're gonna eat healthy, like any diet, if you wanna eat healthy, then it's going to have to be majority plant-based. I mean, even with the CYL squared, it's like half the plate.
Yeah, I mean
It's yeah,
hmm I mean, and that's a good point. I mean, that's comes from the CDC, who does a lot of those. That has a lot of the evidence based research around that, is that half of your plate should be vegetables. You
right.
know, like
Mhm.
non starchy vegetables. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I put in like some chili powder in here.
Mm.
We've also put some smoked paprika, some cumin, and so you can see here it just kind of has this consistency of a meat.
Yeah, and you put in all your, like, a taco spices, so you
Yeah,
get
pretty
that
much. And like if
flavor.
you can always just get a taco packet, like a blend.
Right.
But I just have a cabinet full of spices, so I don't ever need to have. I didn't have to buy any of this stuff. But yeah, I mean, and then you can see it's just this wonderful taco meat. Now, like I said, if you wanted to add a little bit of ground meat in there, you could. You could cook it separately and then put it in there for the people who want to eat meat. But then they're
Right.
getting also a little bit more of those added
Mhm.
nutrients from the plant material.
Right.
All right. Oh, let's check on our artichoke. I mean, our crab cakes. All right. So we've got our crab cakes coming out of
Ooh.
here.
Mhm.
Mhm. You can see they formed pretty well.
Yeah, it looks like they have crispy edges.
Yeah, they've got some nice crispy edges, and they're going to be nice and flavorful. And again, putting in some of the kelp granules in there actually will help give it that kind of fishy kind of taste. So it's like you're actually eating crab.
Mm.
And those artichokes, really surprisingly, have a really similar consistency to
Crab meat.
the crab meat. Yeah, it's really
Yeah, I can
funny.
see that.
Okay, well, we've got all of these wonderful things here. So I want to just kind of put some of this stuff together for you so you guys can have a little bit more of a visual of what this will look like when it's plated.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to grab a bowl. All right, so we've got our chowder.
Erin, I imagine like when you do these, this is great for you, right? You probably don't have to cook for the rest of the week. And that's when it's like, I wish I was like the house right next door.
So yeah, but it's nice having like all of this food now. And if I'm not going to eat the chowder right now, I can always freeze it.
Freeze it. Yeah. Mhm.
Mhm. Let's see here. Okay, so we've got that. And then I have some surprise things for you guys too. So I
Mm.
have a little bit of spinach and arugula mix here. So I'm just going to put this on the bottom of the crab cake.
That's fancy.
Mm,
Normally you go to a restaurant, they have some type of greens beneath it.
yeah, absolutely. So you can still kind of plate it the same way you would at the restaurant, right?
Right.
Even though you have all this plant material, you can still add some more. All right, so that's beautiful right there. Oh, you know what? I didn't put
Your
in our.
tartar. Yes.
I know. We're freezing. So we'll add a little bit of that tartar sauce there that's made up of the yogurt and a little bit of mayonnaise and some hot sauce, some garlic.
Looks delicious.
Voila. I know. I wish you could try it.
Yes, look at that.
So those are your Krabby Cakes. We've got our seafood chowder. I just topped it with a little bit of parsley. So for me, I probably would have made it a little bit thicker,
Mhm.
just so that it felt like it was a real like rich cream.
Right.
So again, I'll probably just blend a little bit more of the cashews in with that milk that I already made. And then we've got our taco shells. So with these, and add in a little bit of that meat there.
And would you use taco toppings?
Absolutely.
Ooh, okay.
That's
And
what's
I
coming.
and
So
I
I
think
will.
it's important too, like your stuff you cooked here, it's like all natural ingredients. We knew what all those were, and I think sometimes you can go to the grocery store now and you can get this meat or vegan meat, but then it has like 100 ingredients on the back of it. And it's like,
Yes.
well, is it really healthy even though it's saying that it's vegan, you
Yeah,
know?
I think people kind of associate vegan with health.
Right.
But maybe 15, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to just go to the grocery store and find all these things that are marketed as vegan. But now that it's
Correct.
like been becoming so popular, I think that they're labeling Oreos vegan.
Right.
You know,
You're
okay, well, yeah,
right.
there's no plant material in it whatsoever. But I mean, are they healthy? Yeah,
Right.
not so much. And then they have all of the like fake meats that are out now, and they might have a list of ingredients that's like 20 long, 20 ingredients long.
Right.
And it's like,
Right.
okay, well, I just wanted, to get the plant-based
Right.
version of a hamburger.
Exactly. And it's like here, it's like 3 ingredients and it's cauliflower, it's onion, it's lentils. Like
Yeah, exactly.
I can pronounce them, I can read them. Ooh, that looks
hmm
tasty.
So just some greens on there, and then topped it with some pico de gallo. The tomatoes, onions, cilantro, a little bit of jalapeno in there, some lime juice, and then we've got these wonderful tacos. Now that
Mm.
taco meat, you can also do if you have like some bigger tortillas, you can make burritos with them,
Mm.
which is fun.
And a taco salad, almost like you
And a
made the
taco
crab
salad.
salad, just put it
Yeah.
on top of the spinach, the greens.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, I have a couple more things I'm gonna show you guys too, because I have a little surprise here back here on the crock pot. Now, have you heard of
Mm.
jackfruit?
I have
Have you ever
never
tried
bought
it?
it, never I think I may have. Sometimes you go somewhere and they have it on the platter, but
Yeah.
but I've never purchased it.
Okay. So one thing about jackfruit, so I'll show you like this is the can here. So one thing about the jackfruit is that
Oh.
it's, in the can, if you get it out of the can, this is
Oh.
what it's going to look like. You've got these pieces and it's a fruit, and but it's a fruit that basically shreds when it cooks. Now you can
Oh.
get it if you get like a really ripe one, it kind of looks like mango a little bit, bright
Mhm.
yellow. I have some frozen, but if you want to do like a play on like pulled pork or pulled chicken, you get the can. So
Ah.
what I'm going to show you guys is a little. So what I did was I just kind of sauteed some onions and garlic, and then we put the jackfruit in the slow cooker along with
Mhm.
some barbecue sauce.
Oh.
And this barbecue sauce that I got is actually unsweetened. So that, when it comes to sauces and things like that, you know,
Mm,
you can get in
mhm.
trouble, right? So
Right.
I know Primal Kitchen, really tries to make clean food.
Mhm.
Whereas they have a lot of ingredients, but it's all stuff that you can recognize: vinegar, Dijon, mustard seed, onion powder, smoked, like organic garlic. You know what I mean? So now
Right.
these get a little pricier. So you can make some at home, and you can put in as little or as much sugar as you want, and then you at least you're in control of that. But to top this off, we've got a little bit of
Oh, that looks
coleslaw here.
coleslaw.
Mhm.
Mhm. That'll add some crunch to that. Oh,
Mhm.
some
So
more
you've got this
texture.
perfectly plant-based thing. Now, what I would do, my husband is actually willing to do jackfruit. He's done it before. But, if you have anybody that's a little bit unsure, take some chicken. This I got from our rotisserie chicken we had in the refrigerator. Shred it up, and then you can put it in the slow cooker with it. So now you have some meat
Mm,
and that texture as well.
right.
This kind of helps out with that texture. So voila, you've got that. Um, got some wonderful coleslaw here.
How
Now
long
you
did
can.
you have to cook the jackfruit for it to shred?
Well, it starts to shred almost immediately, like when I started put it
Ah,
when I sauteed it with the onions, and so you can start seeing it do it, but, the more you cook it, the softer
that's
it'll get.
mhm, mhm.
And I also have a little bit of this pineapple mango salsa, which would be great on either the tacos or
Ooh,
on this
mhm.
as well, okay? And the last thing I'm gonna show you guys.
You're just a woman of surprises
I
today.
know. I was like excited about doing this demo because I was like, oh, good. Like you said, I was gonna be able to meal prep. So what I've got here is a black eyed pea curry salad. Now I mentioned
Mm.
before how black eyed peas can have more protein and less carbs. Those are a
Right.
really good one. And black eyed peas are just, we love black eyed
I
peas in our
know, I
community,
love black
right?
oh, I'm sure. Yes, love black eyed peas.
So with this, you can use a slice of bread as well. So it's almost like making a chicken salad or something of that nature. But you have in the black eyed peas, I got frozen too. So I got them frozen, and then once I thawed them out, I mushed them a little bit and added in. What is in here? We've got some carrots. There's some green onions. There's red pepper. There's celery. A little bit of garlic, and with the actual like mayonnaise base, again, I
Mhm.
used because I was doing curry. I used curry powder for the seasoning component, and I used a coconut, like a dairy-free coconut yogurt. So it's kind of like that play on like the Thai curry where it has the coconut milk in it. So it's very tasty. So, do you want to try some? Mm-hmm. You can put
I
this
oh,
in
I
the.
was I was saying I would love to try some.
And what's nice about it, you can put this in a wrap. You can put it on top of some like salad greens. Anyway, and you let it sit in the refrigerator so that those flavors start to develop.
Right.
But
So
what's
is it
nice
like
about.
a play I'm sorry, is it like a play on, like a chicken salad? Like a
Mhm.
cold chicken salad, like a
Yep.
tuna something
Yep.
like that. Okay.
Yep. Kind of the same
Okay.
ingredients in there, you know? And like I was gonna say too, you can always add in some chicken in there as well. But the
Okay.
bulk of it is going to be
To be
plant-based. And I think that's the key is
mm,
that let's always remember that, the more plant forward we go with our food, the healthier we're going to be. And I know
right.
some people struggle with that and really kind of grasping that, but I think it really is about changing your mindset.
Mhm.
And you mentioned about buying like some of those things that are like processed and things that look like it and taste like meat. What I love about cooking this way is that you get to taste the vegetables.
Right.
And I don't know. My thing is always if I want a hamburger, I'm gonna eat a hamburger.
Right. That's yeah.
But I love veggie burgers, but I'm not thinking of it as a hamburger when I'm eating it. You know what I mean?
Right, right. It's not like I'm trying to replicate this taste of and make it just like
Mhm.
that thing.
Yep, exactly. So, cheers.
Cheers.
Mm. Mm. You get all those flavors that you would with the taco meat.
Mhm.
A little spice in there too.
Right.
You know it's gonna be my dinner when you guys we're off of here.
I know, I'm looking at the time, I was like, "This is like a late lunch, early dinner."
Hmm. And the jackfruit is something I think that is something that everybody should, try. Just try it. Just try it.
Yeah,
And like I said, put it in with some chicken and stuff, and then you just kind of increase the nutrients of your meals. But yeah, that is everything.
it looks delicious, everything looks so delicious.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me in the kitchen
Yes,
again.
anytime. This would have been perfect for me to be there to It's like, I want some of it. The recipes are always so good, and it's like, I just wanna just eat it all.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you try them, let me know.
Okay, I always cook something from it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll
Yeah.
definitely let you know.
Let me know how it goes. I would love to hear your feedback, and that goes with anybody out there.
Yes.
If you try any of these recipes, let me know what you think. And then, I think the greatest thing about recipes is that you can always take a recipe you find and then just make it your own and make it, taste how you want it to your preference. And even with this plant based thing, is like you make it to your preference. If you want to add in a little meat, or if you want to keep the meat out, or if you want to add some additional spices and herbs, it's all up to you.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, this has been a great cooking session, and I hope you guys have learned a lot from this. And I hope to hear from you. And don't forget to check us out and like our page on YouTube for the BWHO Black Women's Health Imperative. And you can also download the BWHI app. And you can continue this conversation with me in the community called Healthy Eating with Dish Diva. So until we meet again, guys, happy healthy eating. Bye. Bye, Tiffany.
Bye.